And welcome back to Reality with Reality Hub. Oh, you won't believe who we have on the show today.
I didn't start really running until I was 35.
He's a Canadian adventurer and Royal Canadian Geographic Explorer and recipient of the Canadian Meritorious Service Cross.
It's taught me to never take anything for granted.
Ultra-distance runner and motivational speaker.
These sort of physical challenges that we take on really are 90% mental, the other 10% all in our head.
He ran 14,000 kilometers across the world's deserts, including the Sahara, the Gobi, and the Atacama.
But we all have the capacity, I believe this, human beings in general have the capacity to really sort of, use this term, rise to the occasion.
Oh, that's not all, though. His runs have included some of the hottest and coldest environments in the world, like the Arctic, Siberia, and Antarctica.
If I could do this, we could do anything.
He set a Guinness World Record in 2009 for the fastest unsupported trek to the South Pole. That's 1,130 kilometers in 33 days, 23 hours, and 30 minutes.
It doesn't matter. At some point, you just don't give a shit anymore. You're just like, to hell with it. You have one kick at the can, one life, and it's your own. It's nobody else's.
He's the founder of Capic One, an expedition company that takes people on adventures around the world.
What matters is, are we going to go? Or are we going to stop today?
And he's the founder of the non-profit organization Impossible2Possible, set up to educate, inspire, and empower school students through adventure learning and participation in expeditions.
Life is a series of lessons, and there's a cause and effect.
This show was a quick one, but a good one. Please welcome to the show, Ray Zahab. It's great to have you in our studio, virtually speaking. Thank you for joining the show.
Thanks so much, Ray.
Thanks, guys. Great to be here.
Have you just recently done a guided expedition in Atacama?
Yes, I did. And it was a guided expedition through my company, Capic One. My partners include Stefano Gregoretti, who I've done several expeditions with. He's from Italy. And as well, Bob Cox, the executive director of my foundation, Impossible2Possible. And what we did, and what we've been doing, is collaborating on these projects, which are essentially taking people back to the places where I've been on expedition and giving them a week in a remote, extreme environment in the sort of, if you will use the term, extreme time of year. Like if we're going to deserts, we try to go in the summer or on the edge of summer. And try to go into some of these colder places when it's really cold. We have an upcoming expedition, for example, in Siberia on Lake Baikal at the end of February. So really it's to take people on these expeditions and really give them the tools they need, leave these expeditions with the tools they need to go on their own adventures, learning about navigation and principles thereof on how to go about organizing their own projects.
And this would have been a supported expedition, is that right? Can you tell us the key differences between unsupported versus supported?
For sure. So when I crossed the Atacama Desert originally, I ran north to south, 1,200 kilometers with minimal resupplies. So typically, what happens when I'm crossing the deserts, the larger deserts, is I try to go with as minimal a resupply as possible, not because I think it's cool to go as far as every day,
yeah,
but it's to cover as much ground as I can. And in doing so, I go with the maximum amount of gear and food and water that I need to take to survive for as long as I possibly can in the desert. I navigate as straight a line as I can, so that means crossing mountains or sand dunes or salt flats, and maybe sometimes if I'm lucky, there's a gravel road or a trail of some kind. And then I meet my crew sporadically throughout the day. So it's supported.
Sure.
When I crossed the Atacama, I ran most days over 70 kilometers a day. I think my average was about 60 or thereabouts per day. It took me roughly 20 days to cross the desert. For these clients, obviously, it's well supported.
Yeah.
So they're running in a region, a very specific region of the Atacama that I scouted. After, of course, running the length of the Atacama Desert, I went and scouted it. And I wanted to bring them. Now, I ran across the Atacama in February. 2011, middle of summer, 55 degrees Celsius, ridiculously hot. But, I wanted to take them at a hot time of year, but a reasonably hot time of year.
Yeah.
But also take them in the highlights, like an incredible region of the Atacama. So I went and scouted the route in 2017 for this trip specifically that just happened recently. So, yeah, it's sort of a culmination, if you will. I know it's a long answer, but it's a culmination of experiences that sort of derive this route that we were just on.
Right.
Our podcast speaks to mental health, well-being, and mental fitness. Do people go with you because it's more than just a physical experience?
Yeah, I'd say. I hope so. The goal with my expeditions since day one, and I know you guys have done your research. Like, I ran over 14,000 kilometers now across deserts, and both supported and unsupported in Arctic regions and Antarctica, etc. And my goal's always been to try and share the experience of adventure and what I'm learning from adventure. A guy who, I didn't start any of this until I was 30. I didn't start really running till I was 35. I was mountain biking a lot before then, adventure racing, but not doing what I'm doing now, and running has taught me, I always say it's been my greatest teacher. It's taught me confidence in myself. It's taught me to believe that I can follow through and take on huge challenges. And it's taught me to never take anything for granted, that life is a series of lessons. Yep. And there's cause and effect, and so I try to apply the things I've learned in running and on expeditions to real life, and I try to share those things that I'm learning, especially with students. Through Impossible2Possible, through my foundation, we've done 15 youth-based expeditions where I've taken kids on expeditions which are completely free all over the world, and so it really comes down to sharing the experience in as real and authentic a way as I can. And because of that, the people that were on this expedition that have been following my expeditions for years wanted to come and hang out, learn, and be part of something that they knew would be more than just a trip.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you still prefer warmer temperatures for the expeditions you go on, or have you come to start liking the cold?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm headed this January, at the end of January, to the Canadian Arctic to do a solo, unsupported speed traverse of a region of the Arctic. And speed in the Arctic is a very hard thing to do in the middle of winter because it's so damn cold. Like, it's minus 50, can get to minus 60 with the winds. It's humid. It's very difficult environment. It's dark. And to add on to that, trying to cover huge distances every day, because that's my goal. It's the goal I set out, and it's something I want to do. But I much prefer the heat to the cold. Like, I just do. I just find it easier. I find it, I can adapt quicker to the heat, but I can do cold. Once my head is in the game, I'm in it, and I've accepted that it's going to be cold. I'm like, all right, let's get cold. Let's make this happen. So, I live very close to the nation's capital in Canada, Ottawa. We're typically a very cold capital region, and it's been somewhat warmer until just the last few days. It's been dipping into the minus 15, minus 20 range, and I've been getting up super early while it's still dark to go out and train. I've been embracing it because I'm like, I don't want this to change. I want it to stay cold, and unfortunately there's a warming trend coming. But that's where my head is right now. And I've often said that, and I said this during the Running the Sahara expedition, that these sort of physical challenges that we take on really are 90% mental. The other 10% all in our heads. Like, I'm being cheeky, but it really is a mental game. It's like you get your head into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we speak to that 10%? If you could deconstruct it, are we as people 90% facing challenges and we know what we're doing, but it's the last 10% that trips us up?
Yeah, I think it, every challenge in life, some challenges are greater than others, but the one thing that's a certainty is that huge challenges in one's life are relative only to oneself. You can't compare anything, or the challenges or the difficulties perhaps that you're going through, with anyone else. You just simply can't, because it's very much a personal perspective on things, right? But we all have the capacity, I believe this, human beings in general have the capacity to really sort of, use this term, rise to the occasion. It's amazing. And, you're a scientist, you've seen when people are really pressed, it's incredible what they're able to do, how they survive, what they're able to pull through. I mean, look at Shackleton, right? Or look at, there's just so many points in history that we can, cite as examples of the human condition when people are able to survive in insurmountable circumstances, and that goes in one's personal life as well. So I think that when you're doing these things that are endurance-based, or it's a challenge, or you have something day-to-day that's a mental challenge, people have an innate ability to do and perform at a way higher level than they ever imagined.
Sure. Because in this day and age of smartphones and technology, I mean, a lot of kids of today are getting more disconnected to the outdoors and nature and the impact of social media, etc. Because I've always found that the outdoors is such a great teacher. Why do you think that is? Do you think we're missing that somewhere?
Well, like you said, I mean, we're in a different time. We're in a different time when people are, a lot of times kids are less active and they're more in front of their devices. It's a double-edged sword. I mean, they can be halfway around the world via the internet and learning more than we ever did.
Sure.
I can speak for myself because I'm 50, more than I ever did when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And there was no technology, right? Or, there was limited technology. So everything we knew about Egypt was in the textbook.
Yeah.
And half of it was probably,
exactly.
Half of it was right.
Yeah.
Now kids can communicate immediately with friends, quote unquote, that they have now in Cairo. So, I mean, it's just a different world from that perspective. Are we missing something in the outdoors? For sure. I mean, look, it's my goal, obviously, with my nonprofit organization to get as many kids outside as I possibly can. And we do, we're successful in doing so with the people that we connect with, right? Even my own kids, for example, my 11-year-old is an amazing cross-country skier, as is my 8-year-old. They both paddle, they know how to ride mountain bikes, they can climb a mountain, they do stuff in the outdoors because that's the lifestyle that we live, right? And it's where we live. But for a huge amount of people, it's very difficult to get outside. So what I try to encourage, long and short, what I try to encourage young people is find adventure in your own backyard. No matter where you are in the world, there's a place to discover. So
I was listening to and reading about you before this, Ray, and there was this moment that's really struck me, and it speaks to a moment of change in your life, and I might have the dates a little off, but to kick off with, is it true you only started running in about 2004?
Yeah, my first running race was in 2004. So until 2000, I lived a pretty sedentary lifestyle. I didn't live a lifestyle that was that much different than most of the people I was hanging out with. I was smoking a pack a day. I was drinking way too much, partying all the time. I wasn't doing anything. I dropped out of community college, bouncing around from one, job to the next to just try and make money, and with no real goals or passion in my life or even real happiness. And so when I made that transition through the inspiration of my younger brother, who was an outdoor athlete, who, inspired me so much that I wanted to try the things he was doing. Obviously, if you're going to start rock climbing and ice climbing with your brother and riding mountain bikes, you can't do it when your lungs are filled with smoke. So, I mean, it was the impetus I needed to quit smoking, and I knew that I had to do that if I wanted to change my life. And so that led me to running, and which was something, ironically, that he always and still does. He's a better runner than I am, but he's just not a competitive runner, right? And so I entered my first running race, which was the Yukon Arctic Ultra, and I won it. And I never really won anything. I did well in mountain bike racing because, my brother and I both have these engines. We have big engines.
Yeah, you got to have.
I never won an international mountain biking event, but here I win this ultra marathon, this running race. And I'm thinking, what the hell? I mean, I must have went on the wrong path or something. I mean, it's impossible for me to win something like this. But it really taught me that we underestimate ourselves. Human beings underestimate themselves physically, mentally, emotionally.
Yeah,
and it wasn't just about me winning something on the day. It was about what we're all capable of.
Yeah.
Like, I realized it was like running made that perfectly clear to me, that if I could do this, we could do anything.
Yeah,
You know, like it just was clear to me.
I was reading about this on Web Explorers, and you said, or they said in that article, that in 2003 you decided to have that moment of change. You stumbled across an article about ultra marathons, and here's the bit that I really dig, which you weren't even particularly interested in, but you read the article and it changed everything. I want to know, what is it about that article that had such a profound effect on you, and can there be something there that's common that could have changed anyone?
Well, it was you know, I'd already been doing stuff like ice climbing. I was a passionate ice climber with my brother in the winters, and cross country skiing, and we were big time. We were into mountain biking big time. And when I read this article about ultra marathons, the article caught my attention because my brother was an avid marathon runner. And so that immediately, that's why, you know, I thought, oh, this is interesting. You know, I started reading about it, and I'd in passing heard the terms ultra marathon and that people run these long distances, but never had I really sat down and read something so thorough about an ultra marathon. And what struck me the most was that the people in the magazine, in the article, all seemed to be regular looking, average, normal people. And I'd never seen that when I was racing mountain bikes. The mountain bike racers looked like mountain bike racers, right?
Yeah.
These people, like what my mind thought a mountain bike racer looked like, right? But these people didn't look like what I thought runners had to look like, right?
Sure.
It was like redefining in my mind.
Yeah.
That makes it kind of doable, right? Anyone could
relatable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't have to be, you know, an elite marathoner to go and try something like this and learn something so significant about yourself. And it was just, you know, it was mind-blowing to me. It really, truly was. And so I just wanted to know what those people knew about themselves. That's all. You know?
Right. Yeah.
So.
Love that, because it could have been, I mean, you chose running, right? So that was your path to it. And is running like a meditation for you? I mean, when you're out there and, you know, doing all those long distances during your expedition, does it still your thoughts, or does it take place, you know, like what's going on in your mind, or is it still the chatter, or?
Well, the funny thing is, when I first started doing these ultra marathons, when I was racing, I would go out and do these things, and it was very methodical and sort of rhythmic, if you will. Whereas, you know, I don't know if I have ADD or what it is necessarily, but when I'm on a mountain bike and I have to think of 50 things that are going on at the same time when I'm riding as fast as I possibly can, because it's very technical riding where I live. And you know, I loved that risk, but also, you know, my mind, although I'm doing 50 million things and calculations in my mind, I'm like in a Zen state. It's very hard to describe.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of get that with running too, but in a different way, for sure.
Yeah.
But to say that it's meditative, maybe that's the right word for it. I don't know. It's just, for me, I know that running, different than any of the other stuff I do, running, when I come back, I feel better than when I left. Right? It's just, especially from a mental perspective.
Yeah.
You can have the shittiest day ever, and you put on your trail shoes, you go for a run, you come back, and all of a sudden things don't seem so bad. Whereas there's no other sport that quite does that, for me at least.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, what you just said there. Yeah. Yeah, it seems to connect you to your mind, body, spirit, that whole, and it connects you to the environment as well. There's a real simplicity to it, and I think we have such complicated lives that just the rhythmic process of running or cycling or doing something over and over, I think, just cuts through everything, and it becomes a simple task, right? For our body and mind.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Ray, you've talked about people underestimating themselves. Why is it people are afraid to take a chance and be so risk averse?
Well, I know for myself, and I've said this before, that like the first 30 years of my life, I talked myself out of doing things. You know, like I would come up with an idea and then I'd say, well, here's the reasons not to do it. And mostly I think it's because the fear of failure and the fear of what other people are going to think.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves, when you're younger, you don't really, like, if you are that 50% or whatever the percentage of the population that is a bit risk adverse. So you gotta you don't want to take a chance. You don't want to look like a jackass to your friends.
yeah.
When at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't, does it?
At some point, you just don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
You're just that would you have one kick at the can, one life, and it's your own. It's nobody else's. So any decisions you make has a zero impact. Decisions I'm talking about personal decisions, not decisions that could impact the lives of others necessarily, but personal decisions. It's going to impact you, no one else.
Yeah.
So it's up to you to do it or not do it. And when I changed my life, I decided that I was just going to change that philosophy. I was like, look, on average, what do we live to? 78 now? I don't even know.
Exactly.
So I've got X number of years left, that I want to live as much as I can every single day and look at the glass as being half full,
Nice.
Yeah, and just speaking on that, can you share some of the exceptional things people have learned about themselves through your adventures and expeditions? Were there some really profound takeaways?
Well, I think what I saw with this Capic 1 expedition in the Atacama Desert, these are adults in contrast to the youth-based expeditions with Impossible2Possible. What was so striking is how similar the excitement was in achieving something.
Yeah.
In being willing to say, I don't really know how this fancy GPS works that's on my wrist, and learning how to use the GPS, and then making the decisions, because for the second half of the expedition, the roles were reversed, and I followed them on the expedition. So they're out there doing their thing, and they're making the navigational choices, and that's so empowering. I think when you give people an opportunity to be empowered through anything, through whether it's through learning something or it's a new skill or whatever, it's those little things in life. It's the little milestones. We all remember those little milestones in our lives, what it was like to get our driver's license for the first time or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But you remember those little things that happened that are so meaningful to everything else in your life. It's not necessarily the big things. It's the little things that make a big difference.
You've said that don't underestimate yourself when it comes to facing goals and challenges. How do you shut off that switch that says, I can't do this, I can't go any further, I've bitten off more than I can chew kind of thing?
Well, that has happened. There's no doubt that has happened. And, I've had that conversation, with myself on expeditions. But really, at the end of the day, it's a very simple thought process, because what's amazing about human beings is we overcomplicate everything in our lives, right? I mean, everything we're thinking multi-layers. We're thinking 50 decisions down the road, instead of quite simply waking up that morning and saying, am I going to run today or am I not? I mean, that's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's nothing else is relevant. Nothing else. Doesn't matter how hard it is. Doesn't matter how dangerous it is. Doesn't matter what's going wrong that day, how injured, anything. What matters is, are we going to go or are we going to stop today? That's the question that's on the table, And then when you answer it in the affirmative, now let's talk about how do we mitigate the injury?
Yeah.
How do we look at the risk factor today? How do we reduce the risk today? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If the answer is no, okay, we stop for the day and we reassess. But that, you got to distill stuff down.
I like that.
Yeah.
Distill stuff down.
Well, actually, that comes to another question we had for you about your superpower. And I wondered, Ray, if you would indulge us for a minute. On Reality Hub, we define your superpower as knowing your authentic self at your deepest level. So if you distill yourself down, what is your superpower?
Well, listen, all my friends talk about what my superpower is.
Do they?
My wife will tell you this. I'll tell you what my superpower is.
Right.
I can sleep anywhere,
Oh.
anytime that I need to for 5 minutes.
Wow.
And then wake up again and be totally refreshed. That's my superpower. It has nothing to do with I know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
That's truly what my superpower is.
Yeah, but maybe it does have to do with what we're looking for, because there must be something in you that is so comfortable and at peace that you can do that you have a real sense of certainty about who you are, a grounded sense of self.
You know what I think the biggest thing is, guys? I think it's this. It's a corny old saying, but it's legit. I look at the world with the glass half full. You know, we in our lives have the choice to look at things 51% positive, 49% negative, because not every day is perfect. You're going to have some bad ones. Can't have the good ones if you don't have the bad ones, because then there wouldn't be any good ones, right? Or we can look at things 51% negative, 49% positive. Like, I mean, you're going to have some good days, but there's a lot of bad days out there. You know, I choose now to wake up on a cloudy day and say, well, I guess I don't need to wear SPF on my run. Waking up on a cloudy day saying, shit, it might rain.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's all...
So I think, if anything, if there was like sort of a superpower, it's not even. It's this desperate desire to constantly want to look at things from a positive perspective.
And is that something that you can teach and discipline yourself to do? Is that what it's like? Because some people, we feel, are naturally optimistic, 100%. Right? Yeah. So it's changing your perspective and mindset.
There's a chocolate cake sitting on your counter, and there's a pile of steamed broccoli. Which one do you want to eat? Which is easier to eat? The chocolate cake. Yeah. Right? Being negative and unhappy in our lives, from, you know, it's a lot easier to slip into that warm sleeping bag of negativity. Yeah. Right? It's just easy to do because that's just, I don't want to say it's human nature, but, you know, it's something that can happen very easily, and it's a slippery slope. Yeah. Just like anything in our lives that, you know, is sort of like a temptation, if you will. You slide that way. But being happy is something you got to work at. You know, when you just, there are people out there that are just genuinely happy all the time, and they've been happy since the day they were born. I was not a happy person. And I remember very distinctly saying to myself, okay, listen, I have to really work hard at being happy. And then one day I was just happy every day. Do you know what I'm saying? You have bad days. Everybody has bad days. But I am overwhelmingly positive, like overwhelmingly percentage positive outlook.
I love that, Ray. I just genuinely, when you were just relating that to me, I had tingles, and it just sort of, it just resonates with me so much. So thank you for sharing that.
You know why it resonates? And I appreciate that, but it resonates. I appreciate that very much. But it resonates with you because it's real. Yeah. That's how it is. I mean, we're always sugarcoating stuff, or we're always changing stuff so that it suits a philosophy that sounds really good in a book. And that's just not the way we work. I just don't believe that, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So here's an interesting question for you. If you weren't doing what you're doing right now, you could no longer do it for whatever reason, what do you think you'd be doing?
I don't think in those terms. I couldn't even tell you. I mean, who knows? Yeah. Right? Who knows? I mean, there's a million things. I love to do a million different things. Yeah. You know, so there's a million things that I love to do. It's not what I do that provides the passion for me, right? Yeah. That's not what... if my brother was an electrician, we'd be talking about wiring houses today. Sure. That's what we'd be talking about, right? So that's not necessarily what defines... It defines who I am as a person. My name, Ray Zahab, I'm an explorer, right? Yeah. But it doesn't define... exploration does not define my inner self, how happy I am or whatever. It's my kids, it's my family, it's my wife, it's my relationship, it's the ups, it's the downs. You know, you're always working at it. You're never perfect. You make tons of mistakes, and you're always working at it. But, you know, that's more what defines me, you know?
You've mentioned your brother in a various number of articles and podcasts and things as an influence on you. What's your relationship with him like? Is he a source of inspiration?
Oh, totally. I mean, he's my best friend. He's my inspiration. He's, you know, he's a leading strength and conditioning coach here in Canada. He's internationally recognized. He works with athletes all over the world. Him and his wife, they have an awesome little facility in Ottawa where athletes come from all over the world to work with them. You know, it's inspiring work that he does because he heals people, you know, and he gets them back to their best. It's what they specialize in. But, you know, we still do stuff together. We were up on Baffin Island, just bombed across it up this past September with a buddy of ours, and we still try to get out and do stuff. He's volunteered on our youth expeditions at different points. our 10 daughters that are oversleeping over with my kids tonight. I mean, so the families are really connected.
Yeah, family's obviously very important to you, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, for sure. It is for me. Oh, I always wanted to be a dad. I always knew that. Always knew that I wanted to be. I never knew if it would happen. So that's what I love. It's my favorite thing.
Brilliant. And speaking on that, you say you always wanted to be a dad. If you could time travel back to a key moment in your life and you could tell your younger self any piece of wisdom or advice, what would you tell him?
Don't change anything. Don't change a thing, because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I changed it.
Great.
Oh, I love that.
Love that. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. You're a product of your experiences, guys.
Yeah.
You can never go back, look back and have regret. You can have regret in specific moments in your life where you said shit that you shouldn't have, or did things that there's no way you're proud to have done those things. But hopefully you learn from those bad things. But overarching, to go back and try and change something if you've arrived to a certain destination and you're satisfied with where you are, you're happily working on where you are, then that's it.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I totally agree with that, every step along the way, you've created this journey through all the choices, the good and the bad, and you can always make different choices, right? Along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure you can. But you gotta learn from the bad decisions you make.
Sure.
And do the best you can.
Ray, I know time is tight and you've got to go, but I've got a final question for you. On the Endurance Capital podcast, you spoke to Kelsey about the many beautiful resources and environments to explore and train in Canada, and you mentioned Gatineau Park. I just wondered how that might compare to a little place called New Zealand, if you've heard of it, and maybe doing a Three Beavers race down here.
Yeah, you know what? Hey, listen, everybody, New Zealand's epic. I mean, Ian Adamson came from New Zealand. I got a lot of friends from from New Zealand. It's one of the guys. One of my best friends. He's Canadian, but a New Zealand transplant. He was on the Atacama trip that we just did, and I mean, he's just a guy so tough. You guys are so tough. He was burned to a crisp. He was burned to a crisp.
Is that right?
And he's like, it's not bad, And he's like, no, dude, it's horrible. Your legs are purple. It's not bad, he says. And then he was okay.
Yeah.
So New Zealand would be an amazing place. Obviously, I've heard so much about it, and I have not been there yet. It's on my list for sure.
Well,
that's awesome, Ray.
Let us know if you turn up.
Just to finish up here, Ray, how can people best follow and support you? Is just through your regular sort of channels?
Yeah, so I have a website, rayzahab.com, and it typically gets updated after my expeditions. And then Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all my accounts they're verified accounts with a little blue check beside my name. Those are the ones to follow. Sure. I have a couple of Facebook accounts, but the best one to follow on Facebook is just my name with the blue check beside it. It's a public page, and that's where I communicate with people daily. Instagram is becoming more popular for me, so I'm there too.
Oh, that's really cool.
Twitter, LinkedIn, all of it,
Yeah. Thanks, Ray. Look, thanks so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, and I think it'll be a real inspiration for the people who are listening to Reality Hub.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
Cool.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks so much, Ray.
Appreciate it.
Thanks later, guys.
Cheers.
Bye. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.